Well, a big highball and hello to all the model railroaders and rail fans out there, and welcome back to my HO scale Missouri Pacific switching layout set in Fort Smith, Arkansas during the 1970s era. Now in this video, I'm going to show you how to make really nice roads with hobby foam. So in the past, I'd use materials like Pavit or spackle to create my road base, but recently I came across a couple of videos where they used the kids 2mm foam sheets. This is just the square stuff you find like in the kids art section, and they cut it down to the width they wanted for the road, and once it was weathered and finished, it looked fantastic. So I thought I'd give it a go on this layout. So I've got this secured with full strength Mod Podge, and it's had time to dry, so we are ready to get started. So for this road, the look I'm going for is an asphalt road that hasn't seen a maintenance crew in a while and has faded to a light gray with weather and time and traffic. So I'm going to start out with an artist acrylic called Neutral Gray. It's going to give me a nice light base there. And I'm really finding on a lot of projects that I'm doing now, I'm really liking these artist acrylics. Now again, you don't have to necessarily start with this color. It's going to depend on the type of road you're modeling, the material of the actual road, whether it's a new road or an old road. The key to getting a good looking road and really just good looking model railroad scenery and structures in general is to model from the real world. So for a road that you want to model, go out there, take a picture of it, do it safely. I don't want anyone getting run over out there. Or you can use an app like Google Earth to get some really good close-ups. But the key is, again, model from the real world. So before putting any paint down, I've got a railroad crossing along this road. So I'm going to run a car through a couple of times just to make sure I've got good wheel clearance here. So I'm going to put a little bit of gray here on my palette, and this type of paint kind of has a cream consistency, so we're going to break that up a little bit here with water. So for the paint application, I'm just use a good old cheap hobby brush here, a foam brush. And you can buy these in packs of 10, 15 for a few bucks. So I'm going to dip it in water, and then I'm going to dip a little bit in paint, and you're going to see me press the brush up against the board, spread the paint out a little bit. This also helps get some of that extra water out of there. You want it wet, but not soaking wet. And at this stage, I just want a good base coat to give the material a little bit of teeth for follow-up applications. So I'm not worried about the streaking or the consistency of coverage at this point. So I've let the base coat dry overnight, and now for the next application, I'm going to add in a color called Warm Gray. Okay, so I've got a little bit of the light gray already added to the palette. So you see here, I'm going to put down some of the warm gray, and we're going to get started with the next application. So for the next application, what I'm going to do is use what's called a sponge painting technique. So unlike the first application where you kind of drug the brush across to kind of give it a good base coat for some bite, this one you're going to see where I'm moving the brush up and down. So I'm trying to avoid putting any streaks in there. Now I'm also using two colors here. I've got the warm gray and I've got the neutral gray, and I'm kind of intermixing them. And the reason I'm doing that is it gives the road, that inconsistency you see in the real world. Very seldom is a road going to be one solid color. For the road that I'm modeling, it also adds that sort of that look of the normal layer of dust and soil that kind of blows in from the countryside. Now on this too, I don't have a lot of water on the brush. So this application is almost a dry brush technique. So I've got the color where I want it. You'll also see I started putting in shoulders using spackle. I've got that on one side of the track. So the next step before weathering is to get some road lines down. Now I have to admit, I can't draw or paint a straight line to save my life. But I got on the web and I came across this great product from Highways and Byways, and it's just HO scale road striping, and it's a real easy peel and stick product. So to make sure my straight lines are centered, I went back and measured the width just one more time. After double checking the width, I marked the center line where the road striping would start and another where it would end. So I cut the length of the stripe to where I wanted it, peeled it off, and I'm ready to apply. So here I have my ruler lined up with the two pencil marks I made earlier, and I'm laying the stripes an inch apart using the ruler as a straight edge. Now after each stripe is laid, I rub the stripe with my finger to make sure it's secured to the road. Now, to make sure the road is at least close to real-world rules for road markings, again, I turned to the real world for guidance and pulled up Google Earth. Now that the striping is down, we see we have a problem that's pretty obvious. While the road looks old and worn, the striping looks brand new. So the next thing we're going to have to do is blend that striping in a little bit better. So to age and fade my striping where it looks like it belongs in this old road, what I'm going to do is take some of my neutral gray, mix it with water. It's almost a wash consistency. And I'm just going to go across and rub the gray on the stripes here. And depending on the look that you want to get, you might want to do this in 2 or 3 steps. Let the first coat dry, then come back and maybe do a second or third one. So the final step of the project is weathering. So I've got my weathering powders here. I'm going to start with a color called Weathered Brown. And I'm going to go along the side of my road here. And this is going to give the look of the soil and dirt that naturally gets heavier along the edge of a road. And on this, I'm going to go even a little heavier just because I'll have a grass field bumped up against the road, so you get that soil washout too. So in the next step, I'm going to go with a soot black, and I'm running this down the center of each lane to give me that look of exhaust and oil and things that tends to gather in the center of a lane. And for this color and really any dark color, what you want to do is you want to go with an extremely light coat. If it needs to be darker, you can go back and do a second coat, but you want to use this very sparingly. So the final application is going to be Dust Bowl Brown, and I'm going to just give the whole road just a good coat of this. And this kind of gives me the look of just the dirt and soil that is blown in from the surrounding countryside, and it also helps fade the road lines out a little bit more. So before showing you the final result, I wanted to share a tip with you that might save you in getting a result that's really just not to your liking. So when learning how to make foam roads, one of the other videos I came across, they actually used a matte varnish to seal the road in the final step, which makes sense because you're doing other scenery and you don't want to get the road wet because the paint can run and it can cause problems. But the problem I found is even though it's supposed to be a flat finish, it actually, you see in these images, it actually leaves a shine. And so I would suggest just don't do this. If you want to protect the road, cover it with something before you do the surrounding scenery, and you should be okay. This was a fun project to do. I'm really pleased with how the road turned out, and once the surrounding scenery is completed, it's really going to make a nice representation of a rural area on my layout. Certainly one advantage I found in using foam over like a plaster type material is I don't have to sand anything down. So there's no plaster dust to worry with, no mess. So if you're looking to model a road on your layout, I'd suggest giving foam roads a try. Now, your questions and comments are always welcome. More videos are coming to include status on my layout, and there's going to be more how-to videos. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and tell your friends to check out my channel. Until next time, highball!